Hello, it's Annie Silverdale Pool again, and I really wanted to share with you today something that's been on my mind recently about the chaos in the world. I remember reading a book about a message to the world. My mum had recently transitioned, and this book fell out of a bookcase, and it was a book about channeled by the Mother of God, the Mother of Jesus, rather, sorry. And I wasn't sure because I'd had a religious upbringing and I'd kind of left the dogma of the church. I was brought up as a Catholic. But there were some lovely, beautiful traditions full of unconditional love and ease and peace in that religion. And those pieces I was looking for somewhere in my life. And so I thought, well, this book's jumped off the shelf for a reason. Is it you, Mum? And I picked it up and read it. And it really influenced where I was going in the rest of my life. Because I've been a seeker of knowing there's something greater than I am, something greater in the world that's creating nature and the seasons and the universe and the stars. And I didn't quite feel it was as small as religion was making it, or that, this greater intelligence, this greater being called God or Buddha or Allah was, everything that I was taught as a young child. And so in my search for finding something different, my path took me to be um, a coach, an instructional coach in my leadership role in education, and a growth coach, and also with Brendan Burchard to look at different styles of coaching. But I felt they all kept me in my head, and I felt that my heart wanted to find out more. The intelligence of the heart is greater than the intelligence of the mind. I know it is. Even though I've been in education all my life, and knowledge is a really, really crucial thing to me. I'm curious and I love to learn. But I wanted knowledge that I couldn't quite grasp. And so I trained as a shaman because that was about the earth and energy healing. And I traveled around the medicine wheel, and we used archetypes to help us to understand the human psyche and the human soul. And it's beautiful. And I still bring the intuition of that into my coaching work because we are all energy, we're all vibrational. Trees, plants, animals, those different levels of vibrating. And that great spirit, we are part of that. We're made of that. It took me a long time to understand that. I kind of rejected it because I rejected the religious part, the dogma part, and I was a little bit scared, if I'm really honest, that anything that might come in might be religious, and I didn't want that. So I carried on exploring, and I noticed in my role as a principal, as a head teacher in the UK, that more and more families were beginning to break down, and I didn't feel I had all the skills that I needed to support those families and the children. So I trained in the local university in the evening in counselling and studying psychology and psychiatry, and I've spent years with the best psychologists and the best psychiatrists in the world. And I retrained again with Michael Neal in his Supercoach Academy because I've got this search to find out who we truly are. And Michael talked about three principles: mind, thought, and consciousness. And it was a really good way of showing me that I'd made up parts of myself. I was a perfectionist, and had to do things over and over and over until they were really, really perfect. And that came from a childhood happening where when I was asked to do something, I suppose my dad thought he was helping me by encouraging me to know that's not good enough, that's not good enough, go back and do it again and do it again. But actually, it is good enough the first time. And I know that now. Except it's my default button. And I know if I fall into a desk full of papers and it's not good enough, I know that's an old made up pattern. And I close the door on the room and I go out and I have a cup of tea. I thought there has to be something really simple about this life. It has to be easier. And with the chaos in the world, I keep hearing the word equanimity, and I thought, what on earth is this equanimity? And it's finding peace and ease in challenging times and disturbing times. And I think that's a really good description for where we are. And we really need to deepen our understanding in a very simple way. And so taking my psychology, my spirituality and my intuitive part of me, I've been seeing and feeling spirit since I was about 6. Taking those together, I realized that I'd landed somewhere really beautiful and increased my capacity to be well, to be present, and to have love. And what accelerated me in the last 3 years was the death of my beautiful son, Anthony, by suicide. And, that was such a deeply grieving time for me. The thing that really keeps me going in all of that loss and grief is the fact that Anthony's spirit lives on, and I have felt it, I have seen it, I have evidence of it. He's all around, he's listening now, he's with me now. So that capacity to be well and to love was accelerated by Anthony, and also by my daughter as well. Learning to be together in a space of grief, learning a different side about each other. And that capacity to be well no matter what, that presence. By present, I mean really being in the moment, in the now, because this is all there is. Do you know, I did a spiritual MBA and I learned that 97% of our thinking is in the past the minute we wake up. It's about yesterday, last week, last month. What is the point in that, really? Because you can't do anything about that. You can know about it if it's going to inform something else you do. But in the ordinary everyday world of being, getting up and moving around the place, what use is the past? We need to be present. Because that clutters up our thinking, doesn't it? I know it would clutter up mine. Used to clutter up mine. Old habits, old beliefs, old ways of being still hang around from childhood. So the capacity to be well is about unconditional, non-judgmental, not fixing, not colluding, not dismissing ourselves. It's about being present to who you are. And the more you're present in that stillness, the more you find out from your inner wisdom, from your heart intelligence, what to do next. Trust me, I have been really taking this belief to the nth degree in my grief over Anthony. And I'm here talking to you, managing life one moment at a time. So there are choices that we have in life. And I've tried to make it simple. It's kind of like this. It isn't really, this is a metaphor. So there's unconditional love and there's conditional beliefs, chaos, falsehood in the world at the moment, misaligned pieces that feel heavy, that very conditional, and we can't always remember what the conditions are. And we can see that by certain political leaders at the moment. It's a head-based space. It's kind of influenced by our emotions and our reactions. And what happens is we get a challenging thought or a challenging situation, and all the pressure comes in, and we react either immediately, so it closes that gap, or we can have that sacred pause that we know about. We can choose in that pause, in that inner landscape of who we are. That's where our inner wisdom is. That's our connection to the greater intelligence. We are part of that. We are that. And if I'm really honest, I'm still working on that piece. So our choice is to listen to only the intellect, or listen to only the heart, or what about listening to the intellect from the heart? That's the best place, because that's a deep listening. That's a space where you ask yourself when things go wrong, what do I need to know? So, for example, if I'm in a conversation and I really don't know what the person's talking about and I feel it's nothing to do with me, I stay in that conversation. Michael Neal in his Super Coach Academy taught me that. Stay in the conversation, but not with judgment, not with collusion, not with anger or resentment or trying to fix or dismissing the conversation. Just be present. And by being present, you kind of hear what's behind the words that the person uses. You hear, you make a connection heart to heart. And that's building your capacity for well-being. By being open and willing and really present in the moment, you are in a really wise, capacious space. It's expansive. It's so much easier than that fearful, conditional, what if space. What if this person wants me to do something I'm too scared to do, and I start to shut down, I start to make myself small? I've done that. Sometimes technology makes me feel like that. And so I get up and I move about and I move away and I do something else. But rather than go down the fearful, false, chaotic, conditional rabbit hole that I'm no good at technology. And the other thing that we sometimes do is we wear a mask. I did that a lot in my grief in the beginning. People thought I should be over it. And that's their psychological innocence, because they haven't ever lost a child or experienced the aftermath of a tsunami, of a suicide. And no, I won't get over it because there's nothing to get over. I'm learning to adjust to the physical loss of my son, but I will never stop loving him and saying his name every day. Anthony Poole, I love you. So where do we get caught up? I could be caught up in my grief. I could be caught up in a conversation that somebody has with me. I can be caught up with a relative in the family who sees me in the way that only that perception happens because they haven't grown themselves. And I can get caught up with somebody knocking on the door and leaving a parcel because I'm the only one in. I can get thinking around anything. I get thinking around the Amazon driver who skids around the turning circle. And I catch myself, and that's a great way to do it. Just notice and observe. Be the observer of your own thinking and go, oh, yeah, there's a judgment. Don't judge yourself for the judgment. Just allow it to pass through. I have a video on YouTube about allowing fear, and I had a little bit of reaction to that from people. And it made me go and look again at the video and what I'd said. And fear is a really strong emotion, isn't it? It's that challenging emotion that we talked about on this piece that comes in, that scares the bejeebers out of you. And it kind of makes the body react in that physiological way, in that fight, flight, fright way. And everything gets intense because the body wants to run away in the caveman days and the cavewoman days. And that's the best time to take a pause. And I'm not going to apologize for the simple things that I do in this first aid kit. First of all, when things get too much for me, I take a breath in deeply and I exhale slowly. That gets me in the moment. The other thing I might do, which I've talked about, is have a cup of tea. Cheers. That one's coffee. And then I love to go out under the stars. Anthony and I used to do that, light a fire in the garden, and I'd have hot chocolate or a glass of red wine at the weekend under a rug, watching the International Space Station go around. And I love to go into a forest or by a beach, places that I can just feel restful. My head isn't whizzing. So when you are stuck or in a space of fear or challenge, find a way to be still. When I used to teach this to the children at school, they used to call it squiggly thinking, when you go, oh, what else is coming into my head? And I had shared the emotional first aid kit with them, because you can't see emotions and you can't put a sticking plaster on it. And in the class, I might have children who were struggling with domestic violence or, one of the parents was in prison, or they didn't have enough in the house to eat, and there was some neglect. And those children live in that high alert position that we are fortunate enough to just feel now and again. They live there, sadly. Until I show them that they had a choice. And that when they were in their fearful place, that to come back, to recover from the fear down into a still place could be an immediate starting point. We also talked about removing yourself from danger, but that's for another podcast. Today is about the capacity to be well and to be unconditional and aligned to who you truly are in that inner landscape, to allow and to trust and to be open-hearted, to allow that feeling. And if it is too much, use your emotional first aid kit. And if it's still too much, talk to a friend. Often we build these things up. Oh, I used to build things up when I was in the grief in the first few months because I didn't know. I didn't know quite what to do with the deep pain. But I managed it. And sometimes it comes back and I manage it again. Because that's the body is a sign and the emotions are a sign that you've moved away from that unconditional space, from that open-hearted present space into the emotional intellect limiting space. And there isn't anything wrong with the intellect. I'm not saying that, but it doesn't guide you. It's an input-output model. And so if you put fear in, it will use fear to guide you back. On another time, I would love to talk about the ego. So look out for that. What is the personal self? Do we really exist? That's in the next video. In the meantime, take care. You matter.